हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्च तव पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. We will commence today's Atma Vicharam, the Friday Atma Vicharam, by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. We usually read his Upadesham from the book Ramana Answers, Self-Enquiry, 1900 to 1950. After contemplating on the question and answer for this week by His abundant grace, then we will have a 20 minutes Atma Vichara session. Following that, our President Sharada Akka would be talking about Atma Vichara as it has been contemplated in the book Ramana Gita, a compilation of Bhagavan's teaching in Sanskrit by Ganapati Muni. And finally, we will have the concluding prayers to Bhagavan. In the question answer series that we have been contemplating on between 1935 to 1950, we have reached the 77th question. The devotee asks Bhagavan, is it enough if I spend some time in the morning and some time in the evenings for this self-enquiry, or should I do it always, say even when I am writing or walking? It's a question, how long we need to continue to do this Atma Vichara Sadhana. Bhagavan answers, no one will inquire into the source of thoughts unless thoughts arise. So long as you think I am walking, I am writing, inquire who does it. These actions will, however, go on when one is firmly established in the self. Does a man always say, I am a man, I am a man, I am a man, every moment of his life? It does not say so, and yet all his actions are going on. I repeat Bhagavan's answer. No one will inquire into the source of thoughts unless thoughts arise. So long as you think I am walking, I am writing, inquire who does it. These actions will, however, go on when one is firmly established in the self. Does a man always say, I am a man, I am a man, I am a man every moment of his life? He does not say so, and yet all his actions are going on. Often we feel whether I should do the inquiry all the time or whatever inquiry that I am doing is sufficient enough. Now, this is a thought. Moment, in the spirit of inquiry, we should even inquire that thought. To whom is this thought? So Bhagavan is saying here, as long as there is a thought, this question of should I inquire about the thought cannot arise. So if our attention has turned towards a thought, or we become attentive of a thought, and that thought takes our full attention, then we should inquire. Bhagavan says, so long as you think I am walking, I am writing, that means so long as we have identified with any object or any sense of individuality due to which we feel we are doing something, we are knowing or we are trying to know something, we have to understand that there is a sense of individuality, there is a sense of ego that is functioning out there. And therefore, moment we attend to that, it opens up the gate for any other possibility. And Bhagavan asks us to diligently inquire then and there. In this Guru Vachaka Kovai, Bhagavan very beautifully tells, so till when should we continue to inquire? Bhagavan gives a very beautiful clarification. See, the self, like in the dream, whatever happens, there is no effect on the waking one. And similarly, whatever is happening in the dream, in the waking, if it doesn't affect the one who is seeing the wakingness or who is there, then whatever is going on, like a man sleeping in the cart, bullock cart, Bhagavan says that as long as who we are is so clear that whatever is happening in the waking, and not only in the waking, but who we are is very clear even when the dream is going on. Until that, the spirit of enquiry has to be kept up. Bhagavan says that in Guru Vachaka Koi. Essentially, Bhagavan is saying that who we are, we have to get clearly established in it. Until that clear identification doesn't arise, if we get carried away by what is happening in the waking, like how we get carried away in what is happening in a dream, then the spirit of inquiry has to be kept up until we reach the transcendental truth and recognize that I am the unchanging self, no matter what is happening in the waking, no matter even in the dream, that awareness will continue to be there. Bhagavan says, until it continues to be there, even in the dream, till that, the spirit of inquiry has to be kept up. So Bhagavan is again reiterating, as long as there is something seen as thoughts, or something felt as I am doing this and that, the spirit of inquiry has to be kept up. This is very important for us as sadhakas to know the measure Bhagavan has given it very clearly. That whatever is happening in the waking, whatever is happening in the dream, the identification of ourself as the self, until that becomes quite natural, we have to continue to do the inquiry. And Bhagavan is saying here that these actions will, however, go on when one firmly established in the self. And we have been looking at this the last 2 weeks as well, like the sun, when in the presence of the sun, how all the activities of the world goes on, there will come up a realization that the self is the pure presence. It's the transcendental truth of pure presence and pure awareness. In its presence, the body, the mind, the intellect, the world is all functioning perfectly. And yet it stands transcendental of all of this. Until that is firmly established, Bhagavan is saying that and Bhagavan is saying that is the actual truth also, that the self is present and all other things are happening. So we need not worry in a way that what happens if I let go this body, mind, and everything which I am trying to control and do and things. What happens if I rise to the self? How will this whole thing function? Bhagavan is saying one need not worry. Like in the presence of sun, the whole world activities happen. It is not that the sun gets involved in everything which is happening in the world in this light. It's just shining in its own presence, like everything happens. So will it be in the self. Therefore, one need not worry. And Bhagavan is saying, even if you take the actual truth of ourself, that Though we don't keep on saying I am a man, I am a man, I am a man every moment, how the whole activities are going on, like that the whole activities will continue to be there, because Bhagavan yesterday also in Nandakumarji's uh, Atma Vichara brought out that like a steam engine which is actually going to carry, which is carrying the whole and all the load as though it is like a straw. It is carrying all the load. Likewise, the whole of these activities of ours is happening automatically. There is no need for us to worry. It is only when we take up this whole thing as something I am doing or I need to do and it belongs to me. I need to know about it. I need to get concerned about it. It looks like a heavy load that one has to deal with it then and there and find a solution. Bhagavan is going on trying to say that you have absolutely no control even if you try to solve it. That is the Upadesham he gave it to his mother. What is going to happen will happen. What is not to happen will not happen. However, which much way we would try to make it the otherwise. So it becomes completely makes sense for us, Bhagavan is saying, to leave this ego, the mind, the intellect, the body, and the world, which is like anything, like which is similar to anything in the Prakriti. We don't worry about the rain, we don't worry about the tree, or we don't worry about so many things in this world, and it continues to function. Likewise, Bhagavan is asking, this is all part of the Prakriti. It will be carried by that steam engine, like any other thing is being carried out, like the water getting evaporated and the rain falling in and cooling down in the skies and forming the rain and falling it on the land, and due to it, a seed germinating and growing up into a plant and getting consumed by somebody else, and that making life again. That whole process of the energy getting transformed from one to another is like it is happening in the world out there without me getting concerned. By taking this to be me, why am I concerned about it? And even if I am concerned, Bhagavan says, you cannot change its course. You can't do anything with it. What is to happen will happen. Therefore, it is best to leave for it to play out its role as it is devised to. And Bhagavan continues to give in the yesterday's talk in the Guru Vachaka Kove with Nandakumarji also read out the second verse. Bhagavan also says this suttarivu, this objective knowledge, this all this which I take it to be me, when I am attending to it, the beloved, the self that I want to attend to, or I want to get it, or I want to realize, doesn't seem to look at me at all. And moment I let go all this suttarivu, the beloved looks and smiles, says Bhagavan. That means by taking this ego to be myself, this individual nature to be myself, and you in however which way I attend to it, I am actually keeping the self away, the experience of the self away. And the experience of the self again, when I'm not looking at it, when Bhagavan says the beloved smiles at me, that means when I don't, even in my sadhana of Atma Vichara, doesn't try to look for the self, when I'm silent, when I leave the ego and the world, and all of it to be as it is, and I don't even look for the self, when that Niralamba Sthiti is given space into, or Nanda Kumarji says, the space between two thoughts is attended into, the self alone is shining in that space. And moment I try to look at it, then I have given it an objective knowledge, or I have given it an objective truth. I have taken the Sutta review to be real, or I have taken the ego to be real. So Bhagavan is saying here that the whole of this body, mind, ego is all part of the nature, and it will be carried away, carried on. I need not worry. Like, I need not worry that I am walking or writing. But moment I worry, then I need to recognize that I am giving reality to the ego, and therefore I have to inquire. If not, the self alone is. If I don't attend to this, or I don't give reality to any of this, what I am experiencing is that pure silence, pure beloved, the self alone. With the immense grace of Bhagavan, with which we have come to this most direct path, because every time we attend to the individual, taking it to be real, in either way, in the form of a thought, or I want to objectively experience something. In whichever way I give attention to the ego, Bhagavan is saying the self does not appear. As long as we take the world to be real, the self will not appear, says Bhagavan. And as long as we take the, whenever we experience the self, the world will not be also, says Bhagavan also. So the objective experience that we are so accustomed to, and we every moment keep trying to do that, Bhagavan is saying if it is happening, then there is something for us to inquire to whom is this and who am I, and to move away from that objective experience back to the truth that we verily are. With the immense grace of Bhagavan, for the next 20 minutes, Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya Namo Ramana. Over to Sharda Akka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, in this part of the Satsang, we are meditating on Ganapati Muni's compilation of Bhagavan's answers to devotees and various seekers of truth. Compilation in the form of 18 chapters like the Bhagavad Gita, which the Muni has entitled Sri Ramana Gita. And we are meditating on the answers to questions from Karshni to Bhagavan. And Karshni has asked Bhagavan about what is self-enquiry, what are the benefits of self-enquiry, what is the qualification of a seeker who wishes to practice self-enquiry, and he has finally asked the question whether any other aspects of practice, including study of scriptures, is relevant to the practice of one who is ripe and ready for self-enquiry. If one is already ready for self-enquiry, would one be wasting one's time in other practices? And Bhagavan says that all those practices are good, especially when one is a beginner in self-enquiry, and they may continue to adorn the one who is established in the truth. Because those who are established in the truth are of two types. One who goes to the forest or the Himalayas or some secluded place for Ekanta Yoga, Tyaga Ekanta Yogaya. And the other is the one who continues to live in the world out of natural compassion for everyone. Parartham cha kriyadhara. In the 18th chapter of Ramana Gita, the Muni will describe such actions of Bhagavan. He says, Aruna Shaila Gatashramavasinam Paramahamsam Ananjanamachutam Karunayadadatam Vyavaharitam Vyavaharitam Satatam Atmani Samsthitam Akshare. Without any change, he is ever established in the self Ramana. Karunayadadatam Vyavaharitam. He accepts actions, he performs actions out of pure compassion. So Bhagavan has also indicated for us in our sadhana that as far as possible, our actions should be for the benefit of humanity, for the benefit of others, or we can share the joy of self-enquiry, share the joy of the path with others. And of course, we could seek and practice solitude, time with ourselves, time with self-enquiry alone. Bhagavan has instructed Humphreys that to begin with, one must set aside some time at least, specifically for self-enquiry. So this Tyaga Ekanta Yogaya may not be possible for us in a complete sense. Or we could take some breaks and dedicate full time, 1 day, 2 days, to our sadhana. But on a daily basis, Bhagavan recommends that we at least set aside 15 minutes for this Ekanta Yoga. 15 minutes a day to be practiced. Self-enquiry practice alone should be done at least for 15 minutes in a day. And the rest of the time, Bhagavan has said, he has told Humphreys, keep paying attention to that which sees, that which knows. Do not pay attention to any of the phenomena, even when one is engaged in activities which may be for the benefit of humanity. It is not to be done with a sense of attachment, because Bhagavan has already said, asangena, and without bheda buddhyupamardhina, without a bheda buddhi, without thinking of differences, without a sense of discrimination between one and the other, no high, no low, no good, no bad, accepting one and all, and without any sense of attachment, one is to perform this action. Every action one is to perform, including one's self-enquiry. It should be done with asanga, without a sense of attachment to it. And the Kumarji often says, with a light touch. So with a light touch, one should do this self-enquiry, offering that also to Bhagavan. Finally, Kashni puts his last question. He says, Nirvanayasti chedanyo marga atma vicharatah yeko va vividhastam me Bhagavan vartumarhati. Other than atma vichara, anyo marga atma vicharatah anyo margaha asti chet. Does it exist? For the purpose of liberation, nirvana. It is not another marga to attain any other goal, but to be liberated. Are there any paths other than self-enquiry? Eko va. Is there only one other path? Vividhastam. Are there many such paths which are equivalent to self-enquiry in leading to liberation? May Bhagavan Vaktum Arhati. Please tell me, O Bhagavan, please explain to me whether there are other paths to liberation. Now, why does Kashni ask this question? Even in the beginning of the chapter, Bhagavan has already told him, Adbhuta siddhaya sadhya upayantarataschayaha. If you tah praptopi bhavatyante vicharena nirvritah. If you practice anything other than vichara, you may get adbhuta siddhi. You may accomplish many things, wondrous things. You may reach wondrous states. But ultimately, you have to come to Atma Vichara to become free. Bhagavan has said so in the beginning of the chapter. But there is a proclivity in the mind, just like the previous question, where we are compelled to ask Bhagavan, may I also do this? May I also do that? There again, Bhagavan has said those are helpful. Those will help you. Those will support the Atma Vichara. They will not disturb your Atma Vichara. Such activities will not disturb your Atma Vichara. Thereby, he has given supreme place only to Atma Vichara. Then again, why this question? This is actually because many people come to Atma Vichara uh, not directly. They don't come to Bhagavan's teachings directly. They come after practice of many other sadhanas. So this question arises, was it all a waste? Or can I pursue that sadhana? Or sometimes what happens is that the question or a thought arises in our mind that I think to my temperament, some other sadhana, the sadhana of surrender, which Bhagavan has also spoken about, that is more conducive. I find it more conducive to practice surrender rather than self-inquiry. Because we continue to make choices. It is not that Kashni alone is asking this question. This question arises in all our minds because the mind seeks variety also. The mind doesn't want to stick to one thing at all times. And the mind is judging all the time. The mind is weighing. Everything is being weighed by the mind. Good, bad, better, best. Good, better, best. Or relatively equal, not equal. We are putting everything on the scales. Actually speaking, without asking any question, if one is just completely immersed in the Supreme, in one way or the other, it is bound to free us, because we see in Bhagavan's life the story of Kau Lakshmi. Kau Lakshmi did not practice Atma Vichara, but Kau Lakshmi had no thought other than Bhagavan. She was performing all her duties as a cow. She continued to eat her grass or her hay. She continued to give birth to young ones. She continued to give milk. And she gave birth to young ones on Bhagavan's Jayanti day. She undertook the sadhana until she was in town. She undertook the sadhana of coming to Bhagavan every day. Now, what happened? She attained the highest state. There was one day when she was standing in front of Bhagavan in Bhagavan's hall, going on licking the newspaper. Then Bhagavan put his hand on her head. He looked into her eyes and she became completely still. And after some time, Bhagavan asked, do you know in what state Bhagavan is, in what state Lakshmi is? Do you know what state Lakshmi is in now? She is in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, said Bhagavan. So until she came every day to Bhagavan. Then she requested him, I cannot walk every day. I am pregnant now. Please give me a place to stay near you so that I don't have to undertake this journey every day. And then he had the Goshala built for her, literally he had it. And then she was very, very particular that he should enter the Goshala first. So she did all her sadhana. She was completely in the path of sadhana, completely focused on Bhagavan. Nothing else. Although all the normal activities were happening, which as a cow she had to engage in. So that was the supremacy of her spiritual practice. So this is possible, right? That is what Kashni wants to ask also. And he wants to establish this for twin reasons. One, for the sake of those who feel drawn to some other path, maybe so that they do not have any confusion in their minds. And also for the sake of those who are practicing self-inquiry, not to judge. Although Bhagavan says self-inquiry is the supreme path, the direct path, one should not, as a practitioner of self-enquiry, look down upon any other practice. One cannot also. One cannot. But if one is by chance clouded by an intellectual approach to self-enquiry, one may fall into the trap of thinking it is better than what others are doing. If such a thought arises, one must question, for whom is this thought of something being better, of self-enquiry being better? But that is the relevance of the question here. It is relevant to our sadhana to understand, not to judge anyone's practice and not to judge our own practice also. So Bhagavan says, Ekah praptum prayatate Ekah praptum prayatate parah praptaramichati Chiraya pratamo gachan prapnotyatmanamantatah. He says there are two ways. There are two ways, two approaches to self-knowledge. One seeks a goal. Praptum prayat. Ekam praptum prayatate. The other seeks, the one who seeks. Para praptaram prachati. Praptaram prachati. The one who seeks, the one who is to attain the liberation, that very one is sought. One seeks the goal of liberation. One kind of approach to liberation is to look at liberation as a goal, to look at liberation, to long for liberation, to yearn for liberation, to work for liberation, to strive for liberation, to give oneself intensely to such striving. This is praptum prayatate. Praptum prayatate. One longs for the goal of liberation. The other one is one seeks the very one who longs, the very one who wants liberation. Praptaram. And Bhagavan says, Chiraya pratamo gachan prapnotyatmanamantatah. If you seek liberation as a goal, you will ultimately get liberation. But he says, the path takes longer, the journey takes longer. Chiraya, it takes longer. Whereas if one questions, who seeks liberation? Who am I who wants liberation? That is the direct entry into the self, says Bhagavan. We get directly back to the self. We get directly in touch with the self. Because when there is a goal, there is a journey. And a journey is happening in time. In time and of course in space, but it's happening in time. It has to take time. A journey has to take time. Whereas, if I ask, who am I? Now, where am I? I'm right here, right now. I am not something which is going to happen even in the next minute. Now, this Chiraya, which Bhagavan is saying, it takes a long time. What is a long time? A long time is not number of years, number of light years, number of yugas. It's not that. A long time is the experienced time, because time is relative. Time is in the mind. In 1 minute, one may dream of thousands of years. Mother Aragamma was by Bhagavan's grace made to experience several janmas within the course of a few hours. So what is Chiraya? What's a long time? It doesn't mean physically a long time, but it means experientially a long time. And and that is inevitable because there is a goal to be attained. There is the self to be attained. Do we not have a goal in self-enquiry? The goal is there, says Bhagavan over here. The goal is, however, the very one who is longing for the goal. The goal is not apart from the self. Therefore, when one pays attention to the goal, a goal which is apart, then there is a sense of time, space, everything. When one seeks to pay attention to the goal, which is oneself, time stops. Because even in one questioning, who am I, time comes to an end. At that point of time, at that moment, there is no time. In an effort to reach somewhere, in that very moment of practice, the time element is ingrained in that practice. Whereas when I ask, who am I? There is only silence because there is no answer to that question. When one seeks one's own true nature, when one does not know who oneself is, when I do not know who I am, what further can I think about? So when I ask myself, who am I? Time comes to a standstill. So in that very moment, the self is experienced. This needs to be repeated, but in a goal-oriented method, the time factor is quite prominent. It plays a major role. This is what Bhagavan is indicating to us over here. It is fine. One can move towards liberation, because the question by Kashni is also, what are the paths to liberation? So Bhagavan says, if you look at liberation as a goal, then there are two ways. One is to look at liberation as a goal and move towards it. The other is to try and ask yourself, who is the seeker of liberation, and get back then and there. Keep getting back here and now. Such is His abundant grace that He has thrown open the Anubhava for us here and now. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. Namo Ramana. Thank you.